The One Piece pre-release, a time to try out new cards and build the most janky decks. With pre-releases being a sealed format, some players tend to struggle with prioritizing cards for their decks. So I figured I'd use my experience to walk through some tips for deck building and some key cards to look out for in set 8. I've even got a box of 08 that I got from my local game store that we can build a deck with in the second part of this video. To best understand the fundamental philosophy of deck building for a One Piece pre-release, we'll use what I call Victor. No, not you, Victor. The acronym. Vanilla's interaction, counter, threats, obstacles, and reactions. Following Victor will help you determine what cards in a pack are useful to build a solid deck. Vanilla is a card with no abilities, so these are typically overstated for their cost and have at least 1000 counter. These types of cards are great curve fillers. And since these characters have an average of 2000 more power than their cost, they're great threats against other characters of the same cost that have abilities. A good tip for running vanillas is to run as many as you can, but I would stay away from any of them that don't have enough base power to attack your opponent's leader. So vanillas with 5000 power or greater are the bread and butter. Interaction is any effect that interacts with an opponent's character to render it just useless enough to gain you some advantage. So that means any card that can remove, bounce, freeze, or disable a character on your opponent's board is very strong in a format like this where resources are tight. My recommendation is to look for characters and events that have strong interactive abilities without a huge investment of resources or a type restriction. Cards like Silver's Rayleigh at Secret, Kaido, Big Mom, Jack, Carrot, Nami, and S-Snake at Super Rare, Pedro, Jozu, Who's Who, and Electrical Luna at Rare, and Consulate, Jinbei, Edward Weevil, Charlotte Opera, S-Shark, and Burnblade at Uncommon are great includes for your deck. Cards with counter are very important in this format and should make up a majority of your deck. When debating between two cards at the same cost, sometimes it's safer to pick the card with the counter unless the counterless card has a very strong and impactful effect. The best characters with counter are characters with 2000 counter. So make sure you take every 2000 counter character you open and slam it right into your deck. In set 8, there are only 10 characters with 2000 counter, and only 5 of them are at a lower rarity than rare. Threats are our bombs, our powerful characters that are usually of a higher rarity and have powerful effects that are usually not type restricted. So keep an eye out for your super rares, as many of them are very powerful and limited. Here's a list of some of the powerful auto-include threats at secret and super rare rarity. Silver's Rayleigh, Carrot, Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, Jewelry Bonnie, S-Snake, and Jack. Now I didn't include Nami in this list because Nami is more of a build around card, but if you happen to build a deck with a lot of triggers in it, then it's worth running for sure. Stepping down a rarity, here are some of the rares that I think would be an auto include if you happen to open them. We have Wapple, Pedro, Jozu, King, and S-Hawk. Obstacles are anything that stops an opponent from attacking our leader. The main type of obstacles are characters with the blocker keyword ability. Blockers save lives, so I advocate that you add every unconditional blocker you open to your deck. In set 8, there are 7 blockers, which is quite a reduction compared to set 7, which had up to 13. Though luckily in this set, most of the blockers are available at common or uncommon. Finally, reactions are what I call events that react to what your opponent does, like countering, buffing, or freezing. Since it's likely that you won't have enough 2000 counter characters, events are a nice backup and can often offer more bang for their buck. Personally, I find the sweet spot to be events that provide 4000 counter for just a cost of 2. Just remember that some events are leader type restricted, meaning you won't get the full effect unless you play the matching leader. Here are some solid events in 08 at the lower rarities. I'd Never Shoot You, Burn Bazooka, and Munch Munch Mutation. Then at rare we have these events. Cloven Rose is a very aggressive option for a wide board to allow you to push damage and also neutralize a character to prevent either blocking or to allow you to attack into it. While Electrical Luna might honestly win games as it can completely stun an opponent's board if you play it at the right time. Now that we've gone over the basics of Victor, hopefully you have a better idea of how to build a winning deck for your pre-release. Now every good deck, well, it needs a solid leader. We have aggressive, defensive, and utility leaders to look at. For an aggressive playstyle, I'd recommend the following 5 leaders. We have the staple leader from Starter Deck 2, Captain Kidd. This leader gives you the opportunity to swing twice in a turn, which can definitely win games, and also being a 5-life leader is very strong. With this format being lighter on blockers than the previous, Yamato is very strong here. Double tack on a leader is completely insane in this format, especially if there's less blockers and 2k counters. Zoro is another good aggressive option, especially if you build your deck lower to the ground. Going wide benefits this leader very well. Starter deck 1 Luffy is also a solid choice. In a format where 2k counters are scarce, attacking as a 6k leader every single turn while also playing on curve is very strong. Then finally we have Dragon, which is my honorary mention. While his ability does mess up your curve a little bit, once you get to the later turns you're able to move your Dawn around to apply maximum pressure to your opponent. For defensive, I'm going to say we have 2 options and then a half option. We have Bonnie, which is a strong way to reduce the number of your opponent's attacks each turn at the downside of having to leave up 1 Dawn every single turn. But if you manage to do this, she's very powerful. Enel is another great option. His resiliency at 1 life can really keep you in the game, especially if you're able to keep staying at 1 life. Now the half option is an honorary mention, and it's Perona. This is a 4 life leader, and its ability is a bit outshined by Bonnie, but Perona gives you the flexibility of resting 4 cost characters or reducing the cost of a character for some of your removal effects to work. The final category is utility, and for this, we have Marco from the new set. I think the ability to cycle a card from your hand to find action in a resource-intensive format is very strong, and his second ability to reduce a character's power by 2000 can make board states awkward for your opponent. Hopefully these deck building tips and leader recommendations will ensure that you build an awesome 08 pre-release deck and do well at this weekend's pre-release. Let's build a One Piece pre-release deck with OP08. Let's freaking do it. We're doing it live. Please, let's see here. So I typically separate my cards based on some things. So cards with counter, vanillas, cards with 2k counter, events, and then I usually put like the rares in like the same kind of piles. So 2 rares with counter. So anything without counter is going to go in its own pile, and this is typically how I start to do things. Kind of collect them together, and then I'll go back through, maybe be a little more aggressive about putting blockers in specific piles. Now I didn't see any, I don't know if I missed any blockers in that specific assortment there. All right, so here's a blocker. We'll throw the blocker over here, and then just a vanilla. This guy doesn't have any counters, so he's going to go down here. Got another blocker. This is interaction. We've got another card and then an event. So just kind of separating them into those categories there of Victor. Let's see here. We've got, so the stage, I'm just going to show the stage over here. Stages are pretty useless for the most part in this format. It's a good counter. It's a lot of vanillas in this pack. Event, we've got a leader. So if we didn't have that leader, maybe we could run it in the event. And then we've got 2 more, and this is another, that's a good interaction piece right there. And let's see here. Typically what I like to see in pre-release is like no hits, right? Because if hits, if I get like an alt-art leader, that's taking up a spot that maybe an SR could have been, but it's just like a weird philosophy of mine. Let's see here, so these are all going in here. Continuing, all right, we got another event. This is a blocker, got a chopper, got another event, and then a 2k. Have I not seen any 2Ks in like the last 2 packs? If anything does, that just kind of shows you how little 2Ks are in this format. No, not at all. Crazy. All right. Let's go ahead and go again. All right, no counter, counter. I've noticed this format does have a lot of cards with counter. There's a 2K, there's another 2K. It's a double 2K pack with a leader in it. We've got a Wapple, it's a solid card. And then the Earth Will Not Lose, and then a nice little Dawn. All right. So we're actually kind of like low rolling a little bit here, not getting any SRs. Again, SRs are very powerful in this format, depending on what SR you grab. I think that's my first Biscuit Warrior there. It's like it's like a card you can run in every deck. So I think it's interesting that I've only seen one of them. Throw that there. Katakuri, and there's a Newgate. All right, so here's an SR. Pretty pretty cool SR, but pretty useless and sealed as it is type restricted, basically requiring me to be a Whitebeard Pirates leader and then also have 2 or less life, but it is pretty powerful. Did not open a Marco, so I'm not even going to be anywhere near this card. So this card is a counterless card, it's just going to sit in the counterless pile. Alright, so when I'm going to build the deck, I'm just going to take this out of the way. And we're going to focus right now and just kind of go pile per pile and grab cards that we think are useful. First off, let's just grab these 2Ks. I've only got 5 2Ks, that's pretty underwhelming. Let's move the events out of the way. And then we're going to focus just right now on the cards that we know we're going to include, right, which are our blockers and our vanillas. So again, the big rule of thumb is a vanilla that can swing leader by itself is good enough. So it's a nice little 6-drop, and I'm just going to separate these by curve here. These 8Ks and 9Ks can pretty much win games on their own. They're very hard to interact with unless your opponent has like a form of interaction. And then these 4/6s are also good. This is not good enough here, and I did end up throwing, looks like a 2K in the pile, or no, these are my 2Ks. Okay, 2Ks at the bottom. So we've got vanilla set here. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the 2Ks now. I don't put the 2Ks in the curve because typically I'm not gonna play the 2Ks out, right? They're gonna just be in hand, especially since we have such a little amount of 2Ks. I kind of want to keep them down here. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in the blockers on their curves. We got a 5 curve. And basically, as I build this deck, it's going to give me a good idea as to what turn order I'm going to typically go for, right? Because you can go first or second. If you're first, you're on the odd curve. If you're second, you're on the even curve. And then now I'm just going to kind of start looking through. Actually, let's go to events. Events has a lot less. So here's some good removal here. Burn Blade, so I'm going to throw that in the 5 slot. Now, I am originally a Magic player, so I typically keep my characters away from my events here, but we're going to put that there. Don't think Candy Maiden's very good in this deck. This is type restricted to Shandoran, the Shandian Warrior, which is, I did open a Calgara, but I'm not going to be running it. This card is not very good. This could KO a blocker, but if I don't have any reduction, it's really not that useful. This very much relies on me trashing a 6 or more. So like if I do end up building like a high curve deck, maybe this is somewhat useful because it can do a really good counter, but for the most part, just leave that alone. This requires Minx. We do have a nice unconditional 4K counter. Well, it does have half of a condition, but it does just counter for 4, so we're just going to throw that there because we're going to keep that in the deck. We've got Cloven Rose, really good card I shouted out. We're going to keep that. Get rid of this. If I want to, if I have a lot of big threats, I could use this potentially to ramp because this does ramp me 1 card. But for the most part, it's not very useful. So I think we're just going to throw that in the not useful pile here. So we're going to move, going to set some of these off frame here. All right, so now that we've gone through the events, we've gone through the blockers, we've gone through the 2Ks, and we've gone through the vanillas, we kind of have a good structure for our deck here. Now we're just going to kind of fill in the curves with good cards. Charlotte Katakuri's effect requires you to flip your life face down to get into effect. I'm not going to be doing that in this game, but he is a 6/7, right? 7K is a great stat line. 7K requires a 2K and a 1K to get out of it, or 3 1Ks, so that's pretty good. This isn't very useful. Typically now I'm just looking for cards that can kind of swing face on curve or have like a pretty good effect. This stops a 3 or less from becoming active, which could be a potential good early play, so I might just stick that there. This is a 5/6, so I'm just going to look through real quick and just kind of eliminate and keep. Eliminate. And I'm just going to push these off to the side for now and then potentially bring them back in as I kind of fill out the curve here. This is fine. This pudding doesn't seem very good. This is fine. This does KO a 3 or less when he attacks. So like there is a 2-cost blocker in this game. There's also some 3 costs, so that's pretty good. This card I called out in the video, very strong. We're gonna run that card. We're gonna run this as well because it does get rush if I add a card, but also on play he minuses something, so it allows you to get good attacks in. This card is not very. This card's not good. This card has a lot of synergies with Whitebeard Pirate cards, but I'm not really playing many of them, so this card's going to potentially sit over here for now. Just keep sticking some cards here. This is a 5-cost 6K. If I have Calgara in the field, I gain a life, and I am noticeably running 2 Calgaras in my deck, so honestly it's just worth sliding in. If anything, it's a 1K. This is good interaction, throw that there, as I called that on the video as well. This is the second one of these. I only have 1 Cracker, like 1 Biscuit Warrior in the deck, so like I'm not gonna get the value from it, but I might run it just as a curve filler. This is Minx related. This is not very useful. So there is a combo with these 2 here, so I'm gonna stick that over to the side. We'll grab that. This just gives Charlotte Pudding, and then this gives -1 cost. Okay, so I'm gonna just set these off to the side for right now. I might bring these back, right, as like fillers for just 1Ks. Let's see here. Okay, we've got, so these two go together. So if I manage to pull it off, I manage to pull it off, not the 1K counters. These cards also go together. So play up to 1 count when you return, which is this card. So these guys fetch this guy, and this guy fetches the smaller version, which I don't have. So like, yeah, I think these are fun to put in the deck here. And then let's see here where we're at right now. So 9, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. I'm missing 4 cards. That's when we go back into the other pile and just start looking for something to add in, maybe just some curve filler. Grab. This has the potential just to like potentially scare someone, right? Because it 2'd on, it gives it rush. So we'll throw that in there. It's a pretty solid play. This card is unlikely to ever get rush, so we might just leave that alone. Could throw Pudding in just for funsies, but I think right now we just want to look for things that can do something, right? And since these both have one target, like it's maybe worth putting those in. So this was a 36, 37, 38. Let's see here. This is where we kind of look back through some of our previous cards and be like, okay, is there anything actually worth grabbing out of some of these? I don't think so here. We could now look at our these cards here. So the cards that don't have counter, right? Like this one's pretty interesting, right? When it dies, I ramp one. So like if this dies early, it's pretty good. It's also a trigger that can come out of life, potentially, if I need it. I don't think X-Drake's very good in this list, but let's just kind of look. So if we look at our general curve, we do just kind of have like this bell curve of just like a bunch in the middle, right? So this means I can play on either even or odd curve, and I'm completely happy. So let's do one more count up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Let's look for one more card here that we can add in. Again, this new gets shiny, but it's not worth adding in here. I think likely we do have, this is 6 or less, has a cost of 6 or more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards in our deck. But I just don't think that's worth it. Let's just trying to think what is worth bringing in here, because this is only conditional. Yeah. So maybe just adding in just like a random effect here. This is Minx locked. This is locked to Big Mom Pirates. This is just another locked card. I think it's worth just maybe throwing in just an X-Drake, just a curve filler. Or if we wanted to, we could bring this in. I'm just sticking this in. So we currently have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 uncounterable cards without counter. And I think this makes a pretty solid deck. Now we're obviously missing some 2Ks, so I guess I want to play something. So this deck maybe fits the play style of like something defensive. Maybe with this specific list, maybe I would play Bonnie. Like I would definitely want to play a 5-life leader, just because I don't have a lot of counters. So I'll play Bonnie. I could play Luffy. I don't think like Zoro could be good here. I do have a lot of 4Ks that could get up to 5K easily. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't play any like 4-life leader, just because I don't have a lot of defense, right? I don't think if I wanted to play Yamato, I could play Yamato to try to just go really fast, but ultimately I would just die really fast too. So I think like Enel, maybe Enel or maybe Bonnie would be a good option for this deck. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed this type of video.